My daughter sent me a box of cupcakes, and the next day she called me and asked, "Did you like the little cakes, Mom?" I smiled faintly into the receiver and said, "Sweetheart, I gave them to your mother-in-law. She loved them." For a brief moment, silence filled the line. Then, her voice erupted into a sharp scream that pierced my ears. "You did what?" I froze, clutching the phone tighter, her tone echoing in my chest like a warning bell. That wasn't the reaction of someone who had simply wanted to share kindness. That was something else. Something dark. I hadn't even realized it yet, but my life was about to shift in a way I could never have imagined. It all began on a Tuesday afternoon. The doorbell rang at exactly 2:30 p.m., sharp and insistent. After 68 years of living, you learn to recognize the kind of knock that doesn't bring good news. I hesitated before opening the door, my heart already uneasy. Standing there was a delivery man holding a pristine white box tied with a pale pink ribbon. The sort of packaging that screamed luxury, the kind of detail no one in my family usually cared for. "From your daughter," he said with a polite smile, handing it over. My chest tightened. Claire, my 35-year-old daughter, had never been the type to send me surprise gifts. In fact, she hadn't baked, or pretended to bake, anything for me since she was 12 years old, and even then it had been because of a school assignment. I took the box into my hands, and instead of joy, I felt an odd heaviness. It wasn't excitement I carried to the kitchen table. It was suspicion, like the weight of a stone pressing on my chest. I untied the ribbon carefully. Inside sat 6 cupcakes, perfect as little sculptures. Buttercream roses, gold flakes shimmering under the kitchen light. Each cake a masterpiece too beautiful to eat. Yet as I leaned closer, the scent hit me. Sweet vanilla, that part was right. But underneath lingered something bitter, chemical, artificial. My throat tightened. I had been baking since I could barely reach the counter. My mother ran a small bakery, and I spent years at her side mixing, kneading, decorating. I knew the scent of honest cake. These weren't honest. There was something lurking beneath the sugar. My hands trembled as I set the box down. Why would Claire send me these? We hadn't spoken in weeks. The last time, we had fought bitterly. She demanded I pay for her daughter's private school again, and I had refused. She hung up without a goodbye. Now this? A peace offering, maybe? But why did it feel so wrong? I picked up one cupcake and pressed gently on the frosting. The layer was too thick, as if it were hiding something. The cake beneath felt unnaturally dense, heavier than any cupcake should. My mouth went dry. For 47 years, my late husband Daniel had always told me, "Trust your instincts, Lillian." And those instincts screamed danger now. Daniel had been gone for 6 months, taken from me suddenly by a heart attack in his sleep. I had barely begun to learn what life looked like without him. And perhaps I thought this was what Claire wanted, the inheritance, the house, the insurance money. She knew it was all sitting safely in my account. I pushed the cupcake away, nausea twisting my stomach. My hands shook so badly I had to grip the counter to steady myself. Think. Lillian. Think. The phone rang 20 minutes later, startling me so much I nearly dropped a glass. I let it ring 3 times before I composed myself enough to answer. "Hello, Mom." Claire's voice was overly cheerful, almost too bright. "Did you get my little surprise?" I swallowed hard. "What surprise, honey?" "The cupcakes. Weren't they gorgeous? I had them made special at that new boutique bakery downtown. Cost me a fortune, but you're worth it." Cost her a fortune? 2 weeks ago she had called me sobbing that she couldn't pay her mortgage. She'd been borrowing from me month after month since her divorce. Where did she suddenly get money for luxury bakery cupcakes? "Oh, those," I said cautiously, forcing my voice to remain steady. "They are very pretty." "Well, don't just stare at them," she chirped. "Try one. I made sure they were your favorite. Vanilla with buttercream. Go on, take a bite." "I'll wait." The eagerness in her voice sent chills racing down my arms. She wanted to hear me eat them. She was waiting on the phone, listening for the moment I tasted what she had sent. My heart pounded so hard I thought she might hear it through the line. "Actually, sweetheart," I said, the lie escaping my lips before I even knew I'd speak it. "I already gave them to Mrs. Wilson next door. You know how lonely she's been since her husband passed. I thought she could use a treat." Silence. Heavy, suffocating silence filled the line. Then Claire's voice returned, sharp, stripped of its sweetness. "Mom, what did you just say?" "I gave them to my neighbor," I replied, feigning innocence. She was grateful. "You gave them away?" Her tone cracked, rising with panic. "All of them?" "Yes, dear. Was I not supposed to? You didn't say they were only for me." What came next was not the voice of my daughter. It was a raw, animal scream so loud I had to hold the phone away from my ear. "What have you done? You gave them to who? When? How long ago?" I stood frozen in my kitchen, her hysteria pouring through the phone, louder than I had ever heard her, even during her teenage tantrums or her messy divorce. This wasn't ordinary anger. This was fear. The kind of fear that comes when a careful plan collapses. "Claire, what's wrong?" "They're just cupcakes." "They're not just..." She stopped abruptly, but it was too late. My breath caught. "I need to. I'll call you back." Her voice shook before she slammed the line dead. I lowered the phone, my hand trembling so violently I could barely set it down. The cupcakes still sat on the table, little bombs wrapped in buttercream and gold leaf, waiting for someone to take the first deadly bite. And in that moment, God help me, I realized what my own daughter had just tried to do. That night, sleep never came. I lay in the same bed I had shared with Daniel for nearly 5 decades, staring at the ceiling as shadows stretched across the room. The sound of my daughter's scream still echoed inside me, sharp and haunting, refusing to fade. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw those perfect little cakes sitting on my table, mocking me. Beautiful on the outside, but hiding something rotten within, just like the sudden change in Claire's voice. I turned onto my side, pressing Daniel's pillow against my chest. His scent was gone, but the memory of his warmth lingered. I whispered into the darkness, "What would you have done, Daniel? Would you believe she really tried to hurt me?" But deep down, I already knew the answer. He always told me not to ignore my instincts, especially when they screamed louder than reason. And my instincts told me that those cupcakes were no gift. They were a trap. By morning, I felt weak, as though I hadn't closed my eyes once. My hands shook when I tried to pour coffee. The bitter taste on my tongue only worsened the nausea already twisting in my stomach. I couldn't stop replaying her reaction in my head. The silence. The panic. The scream. No mother should ever hear that sound from her child after giving away a simple box of cakes. I forced myself to sit at the kitchen table again. The white box still rested there, now looking sinister under the daylight. I touched the edge of the ribbon, and my fingers trembled. I remembered the feel of Claire's tiny hands when she was a child, clutching me tightly during thunderstorms. She used to beg me to let her sleep in my bed, her frightened little voice whispering, "Don't let go, Mommy." How could the same child grow into a woman who sent me poison disguised as love? The phone rang, snapping me back. I froze, staring at the receiver. My chest tightened. Should I answer? What if it was her again? After 3 rings, I forced myself to pick it up. "Hello." My voice shook. "Mom." Claire's tone was bright again. Almost too bright. "Did you try one yet?" I gripped the phone harder, my throat dry. She was pretending nothing had happened the day before, as if her screams of panic never left her mouth. I swallowed. "Sweetheart, I already told you. I gave them to Mrs. Wilson. You know she lives alone. I thought she'd appreciate it." Silence. Again that terrible silence. Then her voice lowered, calm but laced with something sharp. "You gave them away. Why would you do that?" I forced a small laugh. "Because, honey, they were too pretty not to share. You know me. I always think of others." There was a pause. Then she said, her voice icy, "Right? Of course." And the line went dead. I sat there, staring at the phone in my hand, my whole body trembling. She hadn't asked if Mrs. Wilson liked them. She hadn't laughed or teased me for giving away her expensive gift. No, her only concern had been who I gave them to, and when. That wasn't the reaction of a loving daughter. That was the reaction of someone whose plan had gone terribly, terribly wrong. My chest tightened with a realization I didn't want to accept. Could it really be true? Could my only daughter, my Claire, be capable of hurting me? I pressed both hands over my face, fighting the wave of grief and anger rising inside. I wanted to deny it, to believe this was just a misunderstanding, that she was stressed, that she overreacted. But deep inside I already knew. She hadn't just wanted me to eat those cupcakes. She wanted me gone. I thought of Daniel again. He had left me not only his love, but also the responsibility of protecting what we had built together. Our home, our savings, the inheritance meant for our grandchildren. Claire knew all of that. She also knew how fragile I had become without him. I whispered into the empty room, "What kind of mother raises a daughter who could do this?" Tears burned in my eyes, but I wiped them away quickly. Crying wouldn't solve anything. I needed proof. I needed to know for sure what was inside those cakes, so I wouldn't feel like a crazy old woman haunted by suspicions. By late morning, I picked up one cupcake carefully with a napkin, slipped it into a plastic bag, and sealed it tight. My heart hammered as I held the bag in my hand. It felt heavier than it should, like it carried not only sugar and flour but the truth of my daughter's betrayal. I called Dr. Ramirez, my family doctor who had treated Daniel during his final illness. "Doctor," I said quietly, "I need to have something tested. I think it may not be safe." "Bring it in right away," he said gently, his concern instantly clear. As I hung up the phone, my hands trembled again. I looked at the box on my table one last time. The ribbon had come loose, and the gold sprinkles glistened under the sunlight like little daggers. They weren't cakes anymore. They were evidence. And if I was right, they were proof that my own daughter had just tried to poison me. I sat in the waiting room of Dr. Ramirez's office with the sealed plastic bag in my lap, my fingers gripping it as though it might slip away. People around me flipped through magazines or scrolled their phones, but I couldn't focus on anything except the weight of that cupcake. To everyone else it looked harmless, even lovely. Frosting roses curling delicately over the surface, but to me it was a quiet monster. When the nurse finally called my name, I stood up slowly, my knees weak. Dr. Ramirez had always been kind, never treating me as just another aging patient. He had been there during Daniel's last days, steady and compassionate when my world had been falling apart. If anyone could help me without judgment, it was him. "Lillian," he greeted warmly, then his smile faltered when he saw my face. "You look pale. What's going on?" My throat tightened. I handed him the bag, unable to find words at first. "Doctor, I need you to test this. Please." He took the bag, frowning slightly. "A cupcake." "Yes," I whispered. My voice cracked. "I think someone put something inside. Something dangerous." His eyes softened, but there was no hint of disbelief. That comforted me more than I could say. "I'll have the lab analyze it. It might take a day or two, but we'll find out exactly what's in it." "Thank you," I said, my hands trembling. When I left his office, I felt both lighter and heavier at the same time. Lighter, because I had finally handed over the burden of proof. He would confirm it for me. And heavier, because now I had to face the possibility that my fears were real, that my daughter had indeed tried to kill me. Back at home, the silence was unbearable. I sat at the kitchen table staring at the box of remaining cupcakes. I should have thrown them away, but something inside me couldn't. It felt like I needed them, like they were evidence in a crime only I understood. I couldn't bring myself to touch them, yet I couldn't discard them either. So I left them there, untouched, like 6 glittering traps waiting to snap shut. The hours dragged. My mind kept wandering back through the years, to Claire's childhood. I remembered the nights she would crawl into my bed, clutching her little stuffed rabbit, whispering, "Don't let go, Mommy." I remembered braiding her hair before school, her laughter when Daniel lifted her high into the air. How could that little girl grow into a woman capable of such darkness? By late afternoon, I couldn't take the silence anymore. I needed answers beyond just the doctor's test. So, I sat down with my laptop and searched through Claire's social media. Post after post appeared, a perfect, polished version of her life. Smiling family photos at Disney World just months ago. Designer handbags. Lavish dinners at expensive restaurants. All of it paraded online for friends to admire. My jaw tightened. Only weeks ago she had been sobbing into the phone, begging me to pay her mortgage and school fees. If she had money for vacations and handbags, why had she been begging me for help? Anger burned in my chest, but underneath the anger was grief. Grief that the daughter I had raised with love and sacrifice had become a stranger I could no longer trust. The phone rang, making me jump. I reached for it hesitantly, half afraid of hearing her voice again. When I answered, It was my old friend Margaret, who had worked at the local bank for years. "Lillian, it's been a while," she said cheerfully. I swallowed, forcing my voice to remain steady. "Margaret, I need a favor. It's about Claire." There was a pause. "Oh, honey. You know I can't discuss customer accounts." "I'm not asking for details," I pleaded softly. I need to know. Has she really been struggling like she says?" Another pause. Then Margaret sighed. "If someone told me they couldn't afford basic bills but their account showed regular luxury purchases, I might wonder if they were being entirely truthful. That's all I can say." My heart sank. "Thank you. Be careful, Lillian," she added gently. "Money changes people. Sometimes it makes them do terrible things." After the call ended, I sat in silence, my hands cold against the phone. Terrible things. That phrase echoed in my head. I thought of the box on my table, of the bitter scent under the buttercream. Maybe Claire's desperation wasn't about bills at all. Maybe it was about something far worse. When night came, I couldn't eat. I couldn't sleep. I sat in the dark living room with Daniel's papers spread across the table. Bank statements, insurance documents, the will. My heart broke again as I discovered neat folders where Daniel had recorded every dollar we had given Claire over the years. Car repairs that were actually new car purchases. School fees that never existed. Medical emergencies that coincided with vacations. Lies upon lies. But the most chilling note was dated only weeks before Daniel died. He had written, "Claire wants details about inheritance. Asked about power of attorney. Seemed very interested. Told her we'd discuss after the funeral." I pressed the paper against my chest, tears running down my cheeks. He had seen it too. He had worried about her intentions before his heart gave out. And I had ignored the signs. The phone rang again, jolting me. I picked it up with shaking hands. Dr. Ramirez's voice was on the other end, steady but urgent. "Lillian, you need to come to my office immediately. And I think you should consider calling the police." My breath caught. "Doctor, what did you find?" "I can't say over the phone. Just come in. As soon as you can." I lowered the phone slowly, my hands trembling so violently I nearly dropped it. The box of cupcakes still sat on my table, innocent and deadly. Now I knew. It wasn't just suspicion anymore. Something inside them was wrong. And my daughter's intentions were far darker than I had dared to admit. The ride to Dr. Ramirez's office felt endless. My hands gripped the steering wheel so tightly that my knuckles turned white. Every red light, every stop sign, stretched the journey further, each moment filled with dread. My mind kept whispering the same thought over and over again. If it's true, if she really tried to poison me, then what kind of daughter do I have? When I finally arrived, Dr. Ramirez was waiting for me, his face unusually serious. He closed the office door behind me and asked me to sit. I felt my knees buckle as I lowered myself into the chair. "Lillian," he said softly, "the lab results came back faster than expected. I wanted to speak with you in person." My heart pounded so loudly I could barely hear his words. "Please," I whispered, "just tell me." He placed a folder on the desk, sliding it gently toward me. The cupcakes contained a significant amount of diazepam. It's a sedative. In small doses, it can make someone drowsy. But the concentration in those cakes, Lillian, it was high enough to keep you unconscious for hours. I stared at him, frozen, my breath caught in my throat. "Unconscious." He nodded, his eyes filled with concern. "Mixed with your blood pressure medication, it could have been lethal. This was not a mistake. This was calculated." The room swayed around me. I pressed my trembling hands against the chair, fighting the urge to faint. My daughter, my only daughter, had measured out poison for me with precision. Dr. Ramirez leaned forward. "This wasn't an accident, Lillian. Whoever arranged those cupcakes knew your age, your condition, and your medication. They wanted to ensure you wouldn't wake up. You need to go to the police." Tears blurred my vision. My voice came out broken. "My daughter sent them. My Claire." He didn't look shocked. He only placed his hand gently over mine. "I know this is painful. But you can't ignore it. If she tried once, she might try again." I nodded weakly, but my heart was screaming in denial. How could I walk into a police station and accuse my own child? How could I say the words out loud, that the girl I nursed, the girl I loved more than my own life, had plotted to kill me? When I left his office, the sun was blinding, far too bright for the darkness I felt inside. I drove home slowly, each street corner familiar yet foreign, as if the world had shifted. My hands shook on the wheel, and by the time I reached my driveway, I could barely breathe. Inside the house, I collapsed into Daniel's armchair. His scent was long gone, but the memory of his steady presence clung to the fabric. "You were right," I whispered into the empty air. "You saw it before I did. You knew she was after the inheritance." I pulled his old papers toward me again. The folder he had labeled with her name, Claire Financial Help, lay open on the table. His handwriting, neat and steady, recorded every dollar we had given her. Car repairs that turned into vacations. Medical bills that were really handbags. School tuition that never existed. But one note struck me harder than all the rest. Just 2 weeks before his death, Daniel had written, "Claire asked about inheritance. Asked about timing, legal requirements. Very interested in power of attorney. Told her we'd talk after the funeral." My chest tightened as I read those words. Daniel had worried. He had suspected. But his heart had given out before he could protect me. Now it was just me. The phone rang suddenly, jolting me. I picked it up with shaking hands. "Mom." Her voice was calm this time. Too calm. "I've been thinking about the cupcakes. Maybe I overreacted. Can we talk tomorrow? I'll come over. We can have coffee together, just us." My mouth went dry. Another invitation. More food. Another chance to slip something into my drink. "Of course," I whispered. "What time?" "How about 10 in the morning?" she said smoothly. "I'll bring your favorite vanilla latte. Extra foam. I know how much you love it." I forced myself to respond, "That sounds lovely, dear." After I hung up, I sat frozen, the phone still clutched in my hand. She was planning again. She was coming with coffee this time. Not cupcakes. She thought I would drink it without question. But she didn't know I was ready. That night, I didn't sleep. I paced the house, whispering prayers under my breath, my mind racing through every possibility. I couldn't confront her alone. She was desperate, and desperate people were dangerous. At dawn, I picked up the phone and called Robert, the lawyer who had handled Daniel's estate. "Robert," I said, my voice steady though my hands trembled, "I need you to come tomorrow at 11. I want to make some changes to my will. And, Robert, if something feels wrong when you arrive, please don't hesitate to call the police." "Lillian," he said gently, "are you in some kind of danger?" I swallowed. I might be. The second call I made was to my neighbor, Mrs. Wilson, the same neighbor I had lied about giving the cupcakes to. I explained in a low, careful voice what had happened. "You mean your own daughter?" she whispered, horrified. "I know it sounds impossible," I said, fighting back tears. "But I need your help. Tomorrow at exactly 10:15, I want you to call my house phone. If I don't answer, or if I sound strange, call 911 immediately." She hesitated, then said firmly, "I'll do it." When I hung up, I felt the weight of the plan pressing down on me. I wasn't just a mother anymore. I was a woman preparing for war against her own child. The house felt too quiet as I checked the locks, rehearsing tomorrow in my mind. I kept seeing Claire's face. Smiling, innocent, practiced. I knew she would wear her sweet daughter mask. She would sit across from me, pretending to care, while waiting for me to sip from a poisoned cup. But this time, I wouldn't be the one caught off guard. This time, I would be ready. The next morning, I was awake before sunrise. My body felt heavy, but my mind refused to rest. I moved quietly around the house, checking the locks again, straightening the papers on the coffee table, glancing at the clock every few minutes. The hours crawled by. Each tick of the second hand sounded louder than usual, echoing in the silence of my kitchen. At 9:30, I positioned myself near the front window. My hands trembled as I held the curtain back just enough to watch the street. The memory of Daniel's steady voice came to me. "Trust your instincts, Lillian." My instincts told me that today would decide everything. At exactly 10 o'clock, Claire's silver sedan pulled into the driveway. She stepped out carefully, her heels clicking against the pavement, her pale blue dress fluttering in the breeze. I recognized the outfit immediately. It was one she wore whenever she wanted to look innocent, polished, trustworthy, the good daughter disguise. She carried a tray with 2 cups of coffee, steam curling into the morning air. My stomach twisted as she rang the bell. I opened the door slowly, forcing a smile. "Morning, Mom," she said sweetly, leaning in to kiss my cheek. Her perfume was strong, too sweet, masking something underneath. "I brought your favorite vanilla latte with extra foam." I accepted the cup with trembling hands but kept it carefully on the table, untouched. "Thank you, dear. You didn't have to." "Of course I did," she replied, her smile practiced and perfect. "I felt awful about yesterday. I overreacted about the cupcakes. I was just disappointed you didn't get to taste them yourself. I wanted to do something nice for you." I nodded, forcing my lips to curl in return. "You've always known how much I love sweets." We sat in the living room, sunlight streaming through the curtains. She placed her cup on the coffee table, crossing her legs, her eyes darting nervously to the hallway where Daniel's office still stood closed. "Mom," she began softly, "I've been thinking about Dad's papers. All those legal documents, the insurance, the will. It must be overwhelming trying to handle everything by yourself." I kept my expression calm. "I'm managing fine. But wouldn't it be easier if someone helped you?" Her voice grew warmer, coaxing. "I could take care of all that paperwork for you. Make sure nothing important gets missed." There it was, the real reason for her visit. My pulse quickened. "What kind of paperwork are you talking about?" I asked carefully. Her eyes lit up as though she had been waiting for that exact question. "Well, the will, for instance. The insurance policies. You know Dad had everything set up, but sometimes there are updates that need to be made. Beneficiaries. Legal authorizations. Little things that can make everything smoother." I glanced at the coffee cup in front of me, untouched, watching her eyes flick toward it again and again. She was waiting for me to drink. My throat went dry, but I kept my hands folded neatly in my lap. "Claire," I said softly, leaning forward, "can I ask you something?" She smiled. "Of course, Mom. Where did you get the money for those expensive cupcakes yesterday? And this coffee today?" Her smile faltered for the first time. "I told you I saved up. I wanted to do something nice for you." "Saved up from what?" I pressed gently. "Last week, you called crying because you couldn't pay Emma's school fees." Her face flushed slightly. "That's different. That was a big expense. This is just a small treat. $60 for cupcakes isn't small when you say you're broke." Her eyes narrowed, her tone shifting. "I don't understand why you're questioning every little thing I do. I'm trying to be a good daughter." "Are you?" I asked quietly. The room went still. Her smile slipped away completely. "What's that supposed to mean?" "It means," I whispered, "I know what was in those cupcakes." The color drained from her face. For a moment, she looked like the little girl I once caught sneaking cookies from the jar. Guilty, cornered. But then her expression hardened. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Diazepam," I said firmly. "Enough to knock me out for hours. Maybe even kill me, considering my blood pressure medication." She shot to her feet. "That's insane. You're imagining things. Maybe you should see a doctor about your memory." "I did see a doctor," I replied coldly. "He tested the cupcakes. I have the lab report." Her mouth opened, then closed again, words failing her. Finally she sank back into the chair, her shoulders slumping. "Mom, you don't understand. I'm in trouble. Real trouble. I owe people money. Dangerous people." My breath caught. "What people?" I got involved in some investment schemes. They went bad. Now they want their money back, and I don't have it." "How much?" I whispered. 50,000. Maybe more." Her voice shook. A chill ran down my spine. My own daughter had dragged herself into a mess so deep she thought her only way out was through me, and through my destruction. "So you decided to drug me?" I asked, my voice sharp with disbelief. "What was the plan? Knock me out and then what?" She looked away, her eyes darting to the hallway again. "There's a lawyer coming today. He said if you were incapacitated, he could help speed things along. Paperwork. Estate planning. My stomach turned to ice. You mean if I was declared mentally incompetent? She said nothing. Her silence was my answer. Just then the phone rang. The sound pierced the heavy tension like a knife. 10:15 exactly. Mrs. Wilson. Right on schedule. I answered quickly, forcing my voice steady. Oh, hello, Mrs. Wilson. Yes, I'm fine. No, I don't need anything right now. Thank you for checking. As I hung up, Claire's eyes narrowed. Who was that? My neighbor, I said calmly. The one I supposedly gave your poisoned cupcakes to. Her lips parted, realization dawning. You never gave them to her. No, I said quietly. I lied. Just like you've been lying to me for years. Her face twisted with anger, but beneath it I saw something else. Fear. She wasn't finished. Not yet. And I knew then that this morning was only the beginning. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. The air between us was heavy, almost suffocating. Claire's hands gripped the edge of the coffee table, her knuckles pale, her eyes darting around as if searching for an escape. I could see her struggling. Part of her still trying to play the role of the caring daughter, but the other part, the desperate cornered woman, couldn't hide anymore. Mom, she said finally, her voice low, trembling but sharp. You need to understand. I didn't mean to hurt you. I just needed time. I thought if you were asleep, if you couldn't fight me on the paperwork, I could get access to some of Dad's money. I would have paid it back, I swear. Her words stabbed into me. Paid it back. As though poisoning your own mother was nothing more than borrowing a few dollars. Claire, I whispered, shaking my head slowly. You tried to drug me. Do you even hear yourself? Do you know what you're saying? Tears welled in her eyes, but they didn't soften me anymore. I had seen too many fake tears from her. Mom, please. These people I owe money to, they're not the kind you can just ignore. They'll come after me. They'll hurt me. They might even hurt Emma and Jack. The mention of my grandchildren made my chest ache. I pictured their small faces, their innocence. They didn't ask for any of this. And yet here we were. Before I could answer, a knock came at the door. My heart lurched. She froze, then looked at me, her expression shifting quickly, carefully, back into something calmer. That's him, she whispered. I stood without a word and walked to the window. Through the curtain, I saw a thin man in a crisp, expensive suit standing on my porch, holding a sleek black briefcase. His hair was slicked back, his posture confident, the kind of man who thought he could sell anything to anyone. He knocked again, firmer this time. Mom, Claire said softly, standing behind me now. This is just a lawyer. He can help us. If you just sign a few papers, everything will be okay. I'll be able to pay them back. We can fix this. Fix this. I turned sharply, my voice cold. By stealing everything your father and I built? By treating me like a signature on a piece of paper instead of your mother? Her lips trembled, but she didn't reply. The knock came again. Reluctantly, I opened the door, keeping the chain latch in place. Mrs. Whitmore? The man asked politely, his tone smooth as silk. I'm David Blackwood. I believe your daughter scheduled an appointment with me regarding your estate planning. My daughter scheduled nothing with my consent, I said firmly, my voice steady despite the fear in my chest. I suggest you leave. He blinked, clearly not expecting resistance. Ma'am, I think there's been a misunderstanding. Your daughter told me you wanted to make some adjustments to your will, to your power of attorney. My daughter has no authority to speak on my behalf, I interrupted. And if you're here to declare me incompetent while I'm drugged, you're in for a very unpleasant surprise. His face paled. For the first time, his polished mask cracked. Ma'am, I assure you I don't know what you mean. I know exactly what I mean, I snapped. Now get off my property before I call the police. His eyes flickered nervously, then he nodded quickly and turned, striding down the path toward his car. Behind me, Claire's voice broke, sharp and furious. Why did you do that? Do you know what you've done? You've ruined everything. Ruined everything? I turned back to her, my anger finally rising above my grief. Claire, you tried to poison me. You lied. You manipulated. You plan to take everything your father left behind. And now you stand in my house and tell me I ruined everything. Her face twisted, her mask gone. You don't understand. I didn't have a choice. They'll kill me if I don't pay them. Then you should have come to me honestly, I said coldly. You should have asked for help, not plotted my death. Her voice rose, hysterical now. Would you have given me $50,000? Just like that? For debts you don't even understand. No, I said firmly. For your children's needs, maybe. But not for this. Not for greed. Not for gambling. Not for lies. She slammed her hands on the table, making the cups rattle. Her face was red, her chest heaving. That's not good enough. I need guarantees. I need security. You're old, Mom. You're 68. Why should I wait for you to die and hope you leave me enough to save me? Her words struck me like a physical blow. My own daughter, the child I carried for 9 months, the little girl I sang to sleep, now stood before me saying she couldn't wait for me to die. Get out, I said softly, my voice trembling but steady. Mom. Get out. Now. Her jaw clenched. You don't understand what you're doing. If I don't pay them back, they'll come after me, after the kids. That's your problem, I cut her off. You made these choices. You live with them. She stood there, shaking with fury, her eyes wild. Then she spat the words like venom. You're going to regret this. I'm not going away. You think you're smart, but you have no idea what I'm capable of. The door slammed behind her so hard the windows rattled. I stood frozen in the silence that followed, my heart pounding against my ribs. 20 minutes later, Robert, my lawyer, arrived as planned. When I opened the door, I felt like collapsing into his arms. But instead, I led him into the living room, my voice quiet as I recounted everything. The cupcakes. The coffee. The lawyer. The confrontation. His face grew darker with every word. Lillian, this isn't just financial manipulation. This is attempted poisoning. At minimum. Possibly attempted murder. You need to file a report with the police immediately. I know, I whispered, tears stinging my eyes. But first I need to protect myself from whatever she tries next. We sat together at the table for over an hour, rewriting my will, adjusting the power of attorney, creating legal walls my daughter could never climb. If anything happened to me under suspicious circumstances, she would inherit nothing. I signed the last document with a shaky hand. For the first time in days, I felt a sliver of safety. She doesn't know, I whispered. She still thinks if she incapacitates me, she gets everything. But now she has nothing to gain. Robert nodded solemnly. It's the right step. But you need to be careful, Lillian. She's desperate. And desperate people don't give up easily. As I closed the folder, I knew he was right. Claire wasn't finished. And the worst was yet to come. For 3 days, my house felt like a fortress. I checked every lock before bed, sometimes twice. I left lights on through the night so shadows couldn't trick me. I moved through the rooms quietly, listening for footsteps that weren't mine, half expecting to hear her key in the front door. I couldn't rest. I knew Claire wasn't finished. And I was right. It was a Tuesday afternoon when I heard car doors slam outside. My heart jolted. Through the lace curtains, I saw her walking up the path. Not alone this time. Behind her came a tall, broad man with arms like tree trunks, the kind of man you'd expect to see in a bar fight. Beside him, a woman in a crisp business suit, carrying a leather briefcase, her hair tied neatly back. Claire didn't even knock. She used the spare key I had given her years ago for emergencies, slipping into my home as though she still had the right. Mom, she said brightly, too brightly, her false smile stretched across her face. We need to talk. The suited woman stepped forward. Mrs. Whitmore, my name is Dr. Sarah Mills. I understand you've been having some concerns about your memory and decision-making. I blinked at her. Excuse me. She smiled politely, but there was steel beneath it. Your daughter told me you've been confused lately. Forgetful. Making unusual accusations. I turned sharply to Claire. What did you tell her? Claire folded her arms, her expression calm but cold. I told her the truth, that you're making things up. imagining poisoned cupcakes, accusing me of terrible things. Mom, you need help. My stomach turned. She had come prepared this time. A fake doctor. A thug. And papers, no doubt, tucked in that briefcase. The man spoke for the first time, his voice deep and intimidating. Ma'am, I'm Tom Bradley. I work with Dr. Mills. We specialize in helping families through transitions when elderly parents struggle to care for themselves. I understood instantly. This wasn't a consultation. This was an ambush. They wanted to declare me incompetent, right here in my own living room. I want you all to leave my house, I said firmly, my voice shaking but strong. Mom, please, Claire cooed, her tone dripping with fake sweetness. We're just trying to help you. Dr. Mills thinks you might benefit from professional care. A nice facility where you'd be comfortable and safe. I'm not going anywhere, I snapped. Dr. Mills opened her briefcase and spread papers across my coffee table. We have some forms here that could clarify your legal status. If you're having memory issues, it may be best to let someone you trust handle your affairs. Someone I trust? I scoffed. Like the daughter who tried to poison me? See. Claire turned to the doctor, her voice rising with mock despair. She's paranoid. Completely delusional. She thinks I want to hurt her. I don't think it, I said sharply. I know it. I have a lab report that proves what you put in those cupcakes. Dr. Mills gave me a practiced, pitying look. Mrs. Whitmore, paranoid delusions are very common at your age. The mind sometimes creates elaborate stories to explain ordinary events. Ordinary events. There was nothing ordinary about sedatives in my food. Mom, Claire said, her eyes glistening with crocodile tears. Please, just sign the papers. We only want to take care of you. I looked down at the papers. Power of attorney. Medical authorizations. Legal declarations of competency. Everything Claire needed to seize my life, my money, my home. And if I refuse? I asked quietly. Tom Bradley stepped closer, his massive frame looming over me. Sometimes, when people are experiencing mental health episodes, they need to be taken somewhere safe for their own protection. The threat was clear. Sign the papers or be dragged out of my own house like a criminal. I forced my voice calm. I need to use the bathroom. Dr. Mills smiled thinly. Of course. But Tom will accompany you. For your safety. He followed me down the hall, watching every step. My mind raced. I needed time. I needed to think. I splashed water on my face, staring at my reflection in the mirror. My heart pounded so hard I thought I'd collapse. When I returned to the living room, the papers were spread neatly on the table. Dr. Mills tapped her pen against the top page. If you'll just sign here, Mrs. Whitmore, we can arrange for your evaluation today. I looked at her, then at Claire, who stood behind her with her arms folded, eyes glittering with triumph. She thought she had won. She thought she had cornered me. But I had one card left. Before I picked up the pen, I asked, Dr. Mills, how much is my daughter paying you for this? The woman stiffened. I'm not sure what you mean. I mean how much she offered you to declare me incompetent. To lie. Mom, stop it. Claire snapped. Dr. Mills is a respected professional. I narrowed my eyes. Then what's your medical license number? I'd like to verify it with the board before I sign anything. For the first time, Dr. Mills' face flushed. She stammered, I don't see why that's relevant. Because, I said coldly, I've already updated my will. If anything happens to me under suspicious circumstances, Claire inherits nothing. Nothing at all. The room went silent. Claire's face went pale, her mouth opening in shock. You what? She whispered. I changed everything, I said, my voice steady now. You gain nothing if I die. Nothing if I'm declared incompetent. Whatever you planned is already worthless. Dr. Mills and Tom exchanged uneasy glances. Whatever Claire had promised them wasn't worth the risk anymore. Dr. Mills began sliding the papers back into her briefcase. Perhaps we should reschedule this evaluation. There won't be a reschedule, I snapped. And if any of you set foot on my property again, I will call the police. Tom shifted uncomfortably, then followed her out the door. But Claire stayed. Her eyes burned with rage, her voice low and trembling. You can't do this to me. I'm your daughter. You stopped being my daughter, I whispered, the moment you tried to poison me. You don't understand, she hissed. These people I owe money to, they won't wait forever. They'll come for me. They'll come for the kids. Then you'd better find another way out, I said coldly. Because it won't be through me. Her face twisted, tears and fury mixed together. You think you're safe because you changed your will? You're not. There are other ways to get what I need. Is that a threat? It's a promise, she spat. I'm not giving up. I can't give up. She stormed out, slamming the door so hard a picture fell from the wall. I sat in the silence that followed, my chest aching, knowing she was right about one thing. She wasn't giving up. Which meant I had to be ready for whatever came next. For 2 weeks after that ugly confrontation with the fake doctor, my house didn't feel like a home anymore. It felt like a fortress under siege. I changed the locks, installed new cameras, and put motion sensors at every entry point. Every creak of the floorboards at night jolted me awake. I drank coffee at the kitchen table with my back to the wall, as though bracing for an attack. Mrs. Wilson, bless her, checked on me twice a day. Sometimes she brought soup, sometimes just stood in the doorway, her presence a quiet reassurance. I had also given Robert, my lawyer, strict instructions. If I didn't answer his calls each evening by 9, he was to call the police immediately. It was a sad way to live, but I knew one thing for certain. Claire wasn't done. Desperate people never walk away. The call came on a Thursday morning. My hands shook the moment I saw her name flash on the caller ID. I almost didn't answer, but something inside me whispered that I needed to hear her voice. Mom, she said, her tone different this time. Broken, defeated, almost unrecognizable. Please, I know you hate me, but I need to see you. Just 5 minutes. I'll come to you. I won't come inside if you don't want me to. We can talk on the porch. I just need to apologize. Her voice cracked. She sounded desperate in a way I hadn't heard before. Not calculated. Not polished. Desperate. I hesitated, my chest tightening. Was this another manipulation? Or was she truly at the end of her rope? 5 minutes, I said finally, my voice firm. On the porch. An hour later, her silver sedan pulled into the driveway. When she stepped out, I barely recognized her. The polished woman who had strutted into my home days ago was gone. Her hair was unwashed, tangled. Her eyes had dark circles. Her clothes looked wrinkled, slept in. She walked heavily up the steps and collapsed onto the porch rail. Mom, she whispered, her eyes red. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry for everything. I stayed standing near the door, my hand gripping the handle in case I needed to slam it shut. What happened to you? She rolled up her sleeve. A dark bruise stained her forearm, ugly and purple. They found out my plan failed, she said quietly. The people I owe money to. This was just a warning. Despite everything, seeing her hurt twisted something inside me. She was still my daughter. The girl I had once kissed goodnight, the child I had once held through thunderstorms. Claire, I said softly, what have you gotten yourself into? I know I have no right to ask you for anything, she cried, tears streaking her cheeks. I tried to hurt you. I tried to steal from you. But I'm out of options. They're going to kill me, Mom. And they said they'd hurt Emma and Jack too. At the mention of my grandchildren, my chest ached. My sweet Emma and Jack. Innocent, caught in the middle of this nightmare. How long do you have? I asked quietly. 3 days, she whispered. They want the money in 3 days, or... She didn't finish the sentence. I studied her carefully. Her bruises looked real. Her fear looked genuine. But after everything she had done, could I trust what I was seeing? Or was this another performance? There might be a way, I said slowly. Her head snapped up. What? I took a deep breath. It would require you to do exactly what I say, when I say it, without questions. Anything, she said quickly. I'll do anything. You need to understand something first, I said firmly. Your father set up a trust. Even if something happens to me, you won't get the inheritance right away. It will be released slowly, over time. Unless I personally override it. Her face fell. What? No. No one ever told me that. Your father was worried about your financial responsibility, I said quietly. So he made sure you couldn't burn through the money in one go. Can you override it? She asked desperately. Yes, I said. But only if I'm alive and mentally competent. She nodded slowly, realization dawning. Here's what's going to happen, I continued. Tomorrow, you're going to call those people and tell them you'll have their money in 24 hours. Then you're going to come here at exactly 2 o'clock with whatever paperwork they want as proof. Do you understand? She looked panicked. Mom, I don't have. Let me finish, I cut her off. When they come here, it won't just be us. The police will be here. Hidden. They'll hear everything. They'll witness whatever threats they make, whatever they try to force me into. And then they'll arrest them. Her face went pale. Including me? That depends, I said coldly. Are you willing to cooperate? Tell them everything about who these people are, how you got involved. Tears filled her eyes again. They'll kill me if I cooperate. They'll kill you anyway, I said sharply. Once they realize the money isn't coming. This way at least you have a chance. She sat in silence, staring at the porch floorboards, her shoulders shaking. Finally she whispered, What about Emma and Jack? I've already made arrangements, I told her. Tomorrow, they'll be picked up from school and taken somewhere safe. Your ex-husband doesn't know the details, but he's agreed to keep them for a while. Her eyes widened. You already planned this? You knew I'd come back? Yes, I said simply. I knew you'd be more desperate than before. And I knew you'd drag them into it eventually. She stared at me for a long moment. And then to my surprise she nodded slowly. You really thought this through. I had to, I said softly. You're still my daughter. Despite everything, I wasn't going to let you die without trying to save you. Her lip trembled. Even after I tried to poison you? Even then, I whispered. The next day, the trap was set. Detectives Rivera and Chong arrived at my home hours before Claire. They wired me with a tiny recording device, hidden beneath my sweater. They stationed backup officers in cars around the neighborhood, ready to move in at my signal. At exactly 2 o'clock, Claire pulled up, looking nervous and exhausted. She kept checking her watch, her hands trembling as she smoothed her dress. They'll be here soon, she whispered when she stepped inside. Are you sure about this? It's too late to change the plan, I said, my voice calm even though my hands were cold. And right on schedule, at 2:30, a black SUV rolled up in front of my house. 3 men stepped out. 2 large heavy-set enforcers and 1 smaller man in an expensive suit whose arrogance filled the air before he even spoke. They didn't knock. They simply walked inside. Claire must have told them they could. Mrs. Whitmore, the man in the suit said smoothly, his smile thin and dangerous. I'm Vincent Caruso. I believe you know why we're here. You're here because my daughter owes you money, I said evenly. 60,000, he corrected, his tone sharp. Plus interest. And if I don't pay? I asked, my heart pounding so hard I thought it would give me away. He smiled coldly. Let's not discuss unpleasant possibilities. I'm sure a smart woman like you understands what happens to families who don't honor their debts. One of the larger men stepped closer. Mr. Caruso doesn't like to be kept waiting. I kept my voice steady. I have the paperwork right here. I gestured to the table, where blank documents sat waiting. But before I sign anything, I need assurances. That once you get your money, you'll leave my daughter and grandchildren alone. Vincent chuckled darkly. Your daughter got herself into this mess with greed. She borrowed for investments that failed. Online gambling. Cryptocurrency. Foolish games. Now she pays. I glanced at Claire, who stared at the floor, her face pale. And if I refuse to sign? I asked. The second man leaned closer, his voice low. Old ladies have accidents. Falls downstairs. Kitchen fires. That sort of thing. My blood ran cold. But before I could speak again, 2 voices shouted in unison. Police! Everyone down! Detectives Rivera and Chong burst from their hiding places, weapons drawn. Backup officers stormed in through the back door. Chaos erupted. The 2 enforcers reached for weapons, but the detectives were faster. Vincent tried to bolt, but officers tackled him before he reached the door. In less than 5 minutes, they were all in handcuffs. Vincent cursed, screaming about entrapment and illegal surveillance. But Rivera only smirked. "You threatened an elderly woman in her own home. That's extortion, intimidation, and we'll add weapons charges too." As they dragged the men out, Claire sat trembling on the couch, her face pale and wet with tears. "Is it over?" she whispered. "For them, yes," Detective Rivera said. "For you, that depends on how honest you're willing to be." Claire looked at me, fear flooding her eyes. "Tell them the truth," I said quietly. "All of it. It's the only way this ends." The days that followed the arrests felt unreal, like I was living in someone else's story. My quiet little home, the same place where I had spent birthdays and Christmas mornings with family, had become the stage of a police raid. Yellow tape, flashing lights, neighbors whispering on their porches. It was all too much. Detectives Rivera and Chong stayed with me late into that night, recording my statement in detail. They asked me to go over every step. The cupcakes, the coffee, the fake doctor, the threats. I told them everything. My throat burned from talking, but I didn't stop until the whole ugly truth was out. Claire sat silently at the dining table, her hands cuffed in front of her. Her mascara streaked down her cheeks, her body trembling. She looked small, fragile, nothing like the woman who had once tried to tower over me with threats. When the detectives finally turned to her, she broke down completely. "I didn't want it to go this far," she sobbed. "I thought I could fix it before she ever found out. I thought I could handle it. But then I owed too much, and they said they'd take the kids if I didn't pay. I panicked. I made mistakes. Mistakes," I whispered, my voice sharp, brittle. "You call trying to poison me a mistake?" She lifted her eyes, swollen and red, and for the first time in years I saw something raw and unguarded. Guilt. Shame. "I wasn't going to let it kill you, Mom. Just make you weak. Long enough for me to sign what I needed. I thought I could undo it before it did any real harm." "Undo death?" I asked coldly. "Undo betrayal?" She broke down again, sobbing so hard she could barely breathe. The detectives exchanged glances, then quietly led her out in handcuffs. "We'll keep you updated, Mrs. Whitmore," Rivera said gently. "But rest tonight. You're safe now." Safe. The word felt hollow. Over the next weeks, the investigation deepened. Police uncovered everything: the gambling debts, the false investment schemes, the fake doctor hired through an underground network, and the mafia connection to Vincent Caruso. Claire had been knee-deep in a mess far bigger than I'd imagined. And I, her mother, had almost been collateral damage. Robert, my lawyer, became my anchor during that time. He guided me through the legal labyrinth: statements, evidence, hearings. He sat beside me in every meeting, reminding me that the law was on my side, that the truth was unshakable. The trial began 3 months later. The courthouse smelled faintly of coffee and nerves. Reporters waited on the steps, their cameras flashing as we walked inside. Apparently, daughter poisons elderly mother for inheritance, made for juicy headlines. Inside the courtroom, Claire looked smaller than I'd ever seen her. Her once polished hair hung limp, her hands fidgeted constantly, her shoulders slumped. When the judge asked how she pleaded, her voice shook as she whispered, "Guilty, Your Honor." The prosecutor laid everything bare: the lab results from the cupcakes, the recordings of Vincent's threats in my living room, the testimony of the detectives. Piece by piece, the puzzle formed into a picture so damning that even Claire's defense attorney looked resigned. And then it was my turn. I took the stand, my heart pounding in my chest. The courtroom was silent as I told my story. I described the moment I bit into that cupcake, the bitterness that didn't belong. I described the dizziness, the fear, the suspicion that clawed at my chest. I described the betrayal of hearing my own daughter admit that she wanted to put me away, make me sign papers I didn't understand. My voice trembled, but I did not cry. I had cried too many tears already. Instead, I spoke with a cold clarity that made even the judge lean forward to listen. "She is my daughter," I said finally, my voice breaking just slightly. "And because of that, this betrayal cuts deeper than anything I've ever endured. But I am still standing here. I am alive. And I will not let her or anyone else take away the dignity I have left." When I stepped down from the stand, the courtroom buzzed with whispers. I didn't care. I had said what needed to be said. Claire's attorney requested a plea deal, citing her cooperation in exposing Vincent's operations. The mafia ties she revealed led to several more arrests, and for that, the prosecutor agreed to reduce her sentence. Instead of 20 years, she faced 8, with the possibility of parole in 5. When the judge announced the decision, Claire turned to look at me. Her eyes begged for something. Mercy, forgiveness, maybe even love. But I couldn't give it. Not then. Outside the courthouse, reporters shouted questions. Do you forgive your daughter? Will you visit her in prison? How do you feel knowing she betrayed you? I said nothing. My silence was my answer. That night, I sat alone in my living room, the silence pressing in around me. The smell of coffee still lingered from earlier, and for a fleeting second, I imagined Claire sitting across from me again, smiling like she used to before greed swallowed her whole. I closed my eyes and whispered to the empty room. You were my little girl once. And I don't know if I can ever forgive what you've done. But I hope one day, you forgive yourself. The house creaked softly, as if sighing with me. For the first time in months, I allowed myself to breathe a little easier. The danger was over. But the wound in my heart would never fully heal. The trial ended, but the story didn't leave me. Even when the reporters stopped calling, even when the courthouse doors closed behind us, the echoes of it all lived in me. Nights were still the hardest. I would sit in my bedroom, staring at Daniel's empty side of the bed, wishing he was still here to hold my hand, to tell me I wasn't crazy for feeling broken by my own daughter. But slowly, life began to move again. Mrs. Wilson still visited, sometimes with her famous peach cobbler. The church ladies began stopping by, inviting me for tea or offering to drive me to Bible study. Robert checked on me weekly, his steady presence like a lighthouse in the storm. Even Detective Rivera called once in a while asking, "How are you holding up, ma'am?" in that calm, protective tone of his. It wasn't much, but it reminded me of something I had almost forgotten, that I wasn't completely alone. Claire wrote letters from prison. At first, I left them unopened on the counter, unable to bear the sight of her handwriting. But one evening, after a particularly quiet day, I tore one open. "Mom," it began, shaky and uneven. "I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I want you to know I'm trying. Every day I wake up and realize what I did to you, and it kills me inside. I am ashamed. I am sick with regret. I just want you to know I'm sorry. Truly, deeply sorry." I read it twice, 3 times. The words blurred through my tears. I didn't respond. Not then. Forgiveness is not something you hand out like candy. It is earned, painfully, slowly, over time. But I kept the letter. Weeks turned into months, and I began to reclaim my home. The locks, once a symbol of fear, now felt like a reminder of safety. The kitchen, once filled with poisoned cupcakes, now smelled of fresh bread I baked myself on Sunday mornings. I filled the silence with music Daniel and I used to dance to, letting the notes carry me back to better days. One Saturday afternoon, Emma and Jack came to visit. Their little feet pattered across the hardwood floors, their laughter bouncing off the walls that had known too much sorrow. Emma wrapped her tiny arms around me and whispered, "Grandma, Daddy says you're the bravest woman in the whole world." And in that moment, something inside me healed. Because bravery wasn't about surviving the threats, the betrayals, or even the poison. Bravery was about standing up when the people you love most try to knock you down. Bravery was choosing to live with dignity when someone tries to strip it away. That night, as the children slept soundly in the guest room, I sat on the porch under the stars. The night air was cool, carrying with it the smell of jasmine from the garden. I closed my eyes and whispered into the dark, as if Daniel was still listening. "I did it, love. I survived. She tried to take everything, but I didn't break. I'm still here." And for the first time I believed it. I didn't know if I would ever fully forgive Claire. Perhaps forgiveness would come in time, perhaps not. But what I knew for certain was this. Her choices were hers, and my life was mine. She had almost stolen it, but in the end, she failed. The moral was painfully clear, etched into my bones. Sometimes, the greatest danger doesn't come from strangers outside your door, but from the people you love inside your home. And when that happens, you must choose dignity over despair, truth over denial, survival over blind love. I stood up from the porch, straightened my shoulders, and looked at the horizon where the sky began to blush with the first light of dawn. A new day had come, and so had a new life. This time, it belonged fully to me.